Welcome to the Women of Distance podcast. I'm your host, Lauren Kramer. These are the stories of motivated women chasing big dreams in the distance running world. You'll hear from women who are crushing it on the trails, the track, and the road. These are not just the stories of women's results at the top of the sport, but the full story of how she got there, the challenges, failures, successes, lessons, and life between the miles. Women of Distance is proudly supported by Open Fuel, responsible sports nutrition to fuel your adventure. Check out their products and their mission at openfuel.co and use code WOD for 20% off your first and every order. You can also visit the Women of Distance Substack to read more behind-the-scenes happenings, including how I'm using Open Fuel in my own training. I want to thank SOAR Running for their support of the Women of Distance podcast. SOAR Running design and produce running apparel that does justice to the commitment and passion of runners globally. Their collections are designed specifically for running, high-performance racing, and also off-road adventure and endurance. Check them out at soarrunning.com. That's SOAR running.com. Women of Distance is also supported by our good friends and fellow trail runners at Summit Roasters. Roasted fresh in my hometown, you can support the podcast by visiting summit-roasters.com and using code WOD15 for 15% off every order. You can find all of these links and codes in the show notes and know that we really appreciate you supporting those supporting us. Without further ado, I hope you enjoy. Thanks for listening. Okay, I am hanging out with Rachel Tomajczyk, Grayson Murphy, Daniels, Emkay Sullivan, and we are hanging out together, all five of us, to talk about the topic of pregnancy and motherhood in sport. I am really excited for this conversation. I really appreciate you all being here. Thank you for taking your time.
Yeah,
all right.
Of course.
To get us rolling, I wanted to sort of allow you guys to introduce yourselves. I'm going to ask you to introduce by where you are currently living, how far along you are in or out, and also what your professions are. I think most of us have multiple professions. So, Rachel, I'm going to throw that to you first.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm Rachel Tomajczyk. I live in Boulder, Colorado, or a little bit outside of it, but kind of hang around those trails. I am in the trails, running in the trails professionally. My sponsor is Merrill, my main sponsor for shoes, and do a lot of the sub-ultra trail distances, and I coach as well, so do a lot of online coaching. Oh, right. And
Grayson,
sorry.
How about you?
Go
ahead. No, go ahead.
I'm 20 weeks into pregnancy.
Okay. All right, Grayson.
I am Grayson. I live in Bozeman, Montana. I am 33 weeks into pregnancy. And my professions are pro, road, and track and trail. Not really track anymore. Trail runner, and I run for Solomon. And then I also coach with Rachel with Wild Strides Coaching Collective, and then own the Wild Strides paper company as well, making training logs. And then I also will be taking maternity leave soon, but I do sustainability consulting as well.
I'm interested to talk a little bit more about that too. All right, Mary, how about you?
Mary now Daniels, and I live in Erie, Colorado, which is about 30 minutes outside of Boulder. I run professionally for Kraft. They are my main sponsor, and then also the feed for nutrition. And I coach full-time as well through Lift Run Perform.
All right, and Emkay?
I'm Emkay Sullivan. I run professionally for Kraft Sportswear, Never Second, and Raid. I am the co-host of the Sub Pub podcast, and I coach online for Free Trail. And I am 5.5 months out of pregnancy now. You guys are seeing him pop in and out of the screen here. He's feeling very needy today. So this is Emery. Whoa.
He just had to say hi too. This is the perfect podcast for him to be on.
I realized I didn't say
Oh,
that.
Mary, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Which is why I'm here. I'm 29 weeks, so just shy of 3/4 of the way.
All right. One of the things, or one of the reasons I thought it would be interesting to have this conversation is both educational and informative about what it looks like to move through pregnancy, postpartum, the parenthood experience as an athlete, especially a professional athlete in the sport, as well as just like sharing your experiences. I think actually all of you do a really great job of sharing authentically online what your experiences have been to this point. But I think also being able to have conversation and share conversation in a longer and deeper format, I think will be really helpful and really interesting as well. So let's maybe start there. I'll go in reverse order this time, MK. I'm sorry. I know you have your hands full. The first question I want to start with is what was your running and training like at the time that you found out you were pregnant, and what sort of thoughts and feelings came along with that?
Yeah, I mean, I found out I was pregnant like a week after getting third place at Black Canyon, and so I was kind of in an off period anyways, but prior to that I had some kind of turbulent training just leading into Black Canyon, and so I was also having turbulent training on the other side of the race, and just like pregnancy did not help with that, but I had a really hard time coming to terms with the fact that something so small could make my life so hard. So yeah, I mean, I was dealing with my Achilles, but then also just um, a bunch of compensation issues from running 100K with that Achilles. And yeah, I remember like texting my coach and my husband and being like, I don't understand why I feel so terrible. Like, this makes no sense. And they're like, MK, you're pregnant. And I'm like, no, this thing is the size of a poppy seed or whatever. Like, there's no way that this is ruining my life in the way that it is. And then I texted Rachel Drake probably like 6 weeks into being pregnant and was like, it's so early. I'm really not supposed to tell anybody, but I just need help. And she was like, yeah, dude, it's definitely because you're pregnant. So that's kind of like the landscape that I was in, like, I guess when I found out that I was pregnant.
I think it's interesting you were sort of in a recovery space anyway, having just raced 100K. But how do you feel like you adjusted your training, or maybe even just like your thoughts and feelings around what you were doing when you found out?
I mean, I was pretty excited because that was like kind of always the plan, or I was hoping that would be the plan, that I could get a golden ticket and then get pregnant before June. That was like really the only thing I wanted was before June, and it happened right away. And so I think I was prepared for the change because of that. But I guess I didn't expect that it would be so difficult. But I think once I got like word from Rachel Drake, especially, I was just like, okay, she's been through this, like she's done this before. She made it out to the other side, so like I'll be okay. And I think just like having a shared experience with someone was really helpful for that, because I think if you were one of the first people to like kind of experience this in trail, being pregnant, as I'm sure these other three women and yourself as well, Lauren, can attest to, is very isolating. And so, yeah, I think just connecting with other people helped me kind of accept where my body was and realize that like this wasn't even close to like over for me. It was just going to be different.
Did you have any other immediate plans that you pivoted from? Obviously, that Western States golden ticket was right there in front of you, but did you have anything else in the meantime in between that you had to change?
Yeah, I really thought that I'd be able to race Boston because I was going to be like 11 or 12 weeks pregnant. And so I was like, oh, like I won't have gained that much weight. Like, if maybe I'm a little vomity, but who knows? But I was never actually vomity. But I was just so tired that literally all I could do was run like 3 or 4 miles at a time. So I finally got within like 4 weeks of Boston, and I was like, I couldn't even run a half marathon right now if I wanted to. And so I finally just pivoted from that. And pretty soon after I let go of that expectation, because I was like still kind of holding on to the idea that I should be able to do certain things while pregnant, I was right around the same time that my body actually started letting me train a little bit as well. But then I just felt less pressure generally. So I was just like having fun. So I would like I went on an 18-mile run with like my friend Helen Mino Faulkner one weekend. And then the next weekend I would just do like 2 hours because that's what I felt like doing. But prior to probably letting go of that Boston idea, I was still like, oh, I feel bad because I'm pregnant, but I should still be able to do more, you know?
I can see how that conversation and relationship then with Rachel was really helpful and reassuring during that time. A lot of the I should be able to sort of thoughts and feelings.
Because you see other people do it. Like some people have really successful times. Like I look at Mary and I'm like, Mary's out here crushing training. She still feels great. But then like, I feel like not a lot of people post about like, and it's getting better. I think the more that people are pregnant generally, that you see more people being like, I actually feel like shit and it's not working for me. So there's like both experiences now.
Hey folks, quick interruption to make sure to say thank you to Open Fuel for supporting the Women of Distance podcast. Open Fuel is responsible sports nutrition to fuel your adventure. Check them out at openfuel.co. Right now, I'm loving their Ultra Fuel drink mix with 60 grams of carbs and 500 milligrams of sodium all in one serving. Soon, they'll also be adding a gel mix to their product lineup. Again, check them out at openfuel.co and use code WOD to get 20% off your order every time and support the podcast at the same time. Find the link and the code in the show notes. Yeah, totally. Mary, coming right over to you, I think your beginning story is maybe not dissimilar. Talk a little bit about where you were in training, racing, that sort of thing, when you found out and what those initial thoughts and feelings were like.
Yeah, I share with Emkay that I raced very early in pregnancy and didn't know. And I raced at exactly 4 weeks. I raced Kodiak 100K and had a really good day there. And it's funny because like I started trying the end of September, happened right away, very fortunate. And like the days going into Kodiak were not that dissimilar from your late luteal phase, like right before your period's about to hit. Like kind of felt like I was like a 7 or 8 out of 10 energy wise, like fatigued a little. And the one thing that I didn't get was I didn't get any PMS cramps. And I usually get them the day before. And so when I raced, I actually carried tampons on me. And my husband, Matt, he wasn't my husband at the time, he was crewing me. I had them in his pockets because I was like, if my period comes out there, like, you know, I'm just going to have to stop a bunch. And so, like, if I ask for them, you need to have them in your pocket quick to hand to me. My period didn't come, obviously. And that was like literally day 28. And I was like, you know, I didn't just race this ultra. So, you know, if I get to like day 32, I'll be like, oh gosh. And, you know, he was like, you're very regular. I think you should take a pregnancy test. We did just start trying. And I was like, what are the odds? Like, I'm 38, he's 37. We both run so much. I mean, like I do get a regular period, like, and I have for years. I've been off contraceptives since 2018, but we kind of like started this process knowing we were getting married in January, and we're like, we don't know how long it will take. Like, and then of course it happened right away, right? So I didn't expect it to necessarily happen right away. And so it was kind of good in the sense of like, I was ignorant to it, because I honestly think lining up for 100K, like, I think I would have been too nervous to do it. It's just a really long race distance. And I know we're seeing women race all different distances during their pregnancy and everything's fine, but I truly think I would have gotten in my head, like in moments when it got hard, like worried I was doing something that would like harm the embryo that's not even implanted yet, right? You're not even sharing blood, but it's like, I just know myself. And so for the best that I didn't know. And then when we got back, took a pregnancy test the next day, and sure enough, that thing lit up right away. And I was like, oh my gosh, like that actually worked. And then like, I just did 100K. Like, I'm a coach, like I know it's fine, but you always have those little doubts in your mind of like, I hope everything's okay. I hope I didn't just screw this up. And so I honestly can say that I didn't feel impacted by it, but a week later, absolutely. I got like super congested. That was like one of my biggest symptoms that still I have on and off, is like really bad, almost like an allergy congestion. Couldn't breathe, sleep went crazy. My HRV tanked, my resting heart rate was like 20 beats per minute higher. Running, I like literally couldn't run uphill like a week later. And so had the race been literally a week later, like I couldn't have done it. I wouldn't have had the same result. So that was a pretty wild weekend for us, I would say.
I think it's important to hear both from you and from MK that those early stages when you don't think it should feel any certain way, that you have big symptoms, you're very aware of something is changing, something is different. Talk a little bit about maybe in that family planning process and not really knowing what that might look like. Did you have other races or other plans or training goals on the calendar that you had to change or pivot?
Well, I raced Run Rabbit in middle of September, and Kodiak was exactly a month after. And the race starts on a Friday, ends on a Saturday. I had my period came that Saturday, and we had decided I didn't want to be accidentally pregnant for a 100-mile race. Like, I've done that distance. The load on your nervous system and your recovery is just different. And so that made me nervous, and I didn't want to start trying before that. Started immediately after based on my ovulation window. And so that's why I didn't know for Kodiak, because it was 4 weeks. And I guess technically I could have blown through a bunch of pregnancy tests like in the days leading into it, but I wasn't going to live my life like that. Like, I wasn't going to, be nervous or anxious about this process or how long it was going to take. I wanted to just be very relaxed about it unless I missed a period or had symptoms that made me want to take a test. So Kodiak was a pivot. Had I completed Run Rabbit, like, who knows? I might not have been able to get pregnant at the end of September, right? Like, when I raced Leadville last year, I got blood work done that showed that my estrogen was a little suppressed. So I might not have been ovulating, and so was LH. By December, it was normal. So I'm very much a proponent of things work out the way they're supposed to. And of course, as I'm DNFing this race with hypothermia, I'm like, what just happened to me? Like, I was having such a great race, but I look back and I'm like, I might not have gotten pregnant at the end of September. Like, this child might not have existed. And so I'm very grateful for that having happened looking back. So Kodiak was my plan. I had thought about doing like another race. Like, I had signed up for Thailand in December, but for me, the main goal was to get a CCC qualifier. And then obviously I do have the ability to go up to UTMB or stay at CCC with my index, but that was the main goal. And so I wasn't sure if I was going to end up making that trip to Thailand or not. And then I obviously canceled it when I got pregnant. And so for me, then the year was building the year towards CCC. And I was signed up for Canyon's 100K. And I was able to defer. Well, I actually got a refund for Canyons because of pregnancy, and then deferred CCC. And I believe we have 5 years to use the deferral for a UTMB race, which is great.
Yeah, 5 years.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome. We'll come back around and talk about what those processes look like, because I think they've really changed in even just the past year, 2 years, to be pretty fantastic. Do you feel like in those early phases or even second trimester that your training changed very much, or do you feel like you were able to relatively, I'm not sure how to phrase that question. Do you feel like your training had to change, or do you feel like it stayed pretty consistent?
It changed pretty quickly. I've over years of consistency in the sport have built myself into a very high volume runner. Like, I really thrive with 100 to 120 mile weeks being very standard. And then I've peaked at 130 to 140 during 100-mile training, which truly I was very 100-mile fit over the summer into the fall, because my goal race had been Run Rabbit. I found that, so my nausea was mild, I would describe, enough that it made me question if I should go out for activity or not. And there were definitely some days where I did feel fatigued and I just didn't desire to do anything. So I just didn't go out. And then I did find that if I got out for some type of movement, it would help the nausea go away, literally magically go away as soon as I started moving. But pretty much right away, my volume was about half. So I was doing about 60 miles a week, sometimes 50, sometimes 70 or 80 in my second trimester. First trimester, I was about 60. I did an interval workout pretty much once a week, and then a long run. I was shorter long runs then. In the second trimester, that really is the golden trimester. Like, I was able to run more, and I hit some of my longer long runs. Like, I did hit like 18 to I think 22 might have been my longest, and like by time 3.5 was my longest. And now in my third, I'm like definitely coming back down. But it's actually kind of funny. I had several people ask me if I was pregnant based on my Strava. They noticed that I was doing so much less, and then I guess people were looking at my workouts and seeing that I immediately needed to like walk jog my recoveries, and all of a sudden I couldn't hit like anything under a 6-minute pace without like a walking recovery. And I was like, man, is it that obvious? Like, gosh,
people
like,
are in there.
Yeah, like, oh my God, maybe I should like not share this stuff. But it's just funny that like I had some women friends that I'm like close to who like, they were the ones especially who were like asking me if I was pregnant, because they were like, we're noticing that like you're like recovering at like, you're walking your recoveries and you're not doing long intervals, so it's like, what's wrong with you?
That's funny. Your girlfriends notice the training changes first before anything else.
Yeah. Well, and you know, like I didn't worry about sharing I'm pregnant and then say having a miscarriage, because that is something that many women face, and I think it's something that should be talked about. And I don't think we should have to feel so isolated in early pregnancy where it's like you don't want to share it for fear of like almost jinxing it, or like being like judged because you had a miscarriage, or having people think like, oh, movement caused it, like maybe you brought this upon yourself, because we know that's not what causes miscarriages, and they're very common. I just wanted a chance to tell my sponsors, and I needed to like get to like an appointment that would like tell me I was viable before I told them, because I didn't want to like feel inconsistent, and I wanted to be able to be the one to tell them and not have like someone else like say something in a public way, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. I'm interested to come back around to the sponsor conversation too, but we'll come back to that. Grayson, I wanted to come to you next. You also had a unique circumstance. Talk a little bit about where you were with your training and racing when you found out, and those immediate thoughts, feelings, and decisions.
Yeah. I was training for World Champs, and I found out 4 days before I was supposed to leave for Spain. And it was a very unplanned pregnancy, so it was a surprise to everyone. And yeah, we had to make a lot of decisions in 4 days, going to Spain. And I think our initial reaction was like, oh shit, this is like pretty bad timing. And I'd been feeling pretty bad in training for a couple of weeks, and me and MK's coach, Rick, poor guy, he was like, I don't think I overtrained you. And I was like, I don't understand. I feel so bad. But yeah, it was like the fatigue and just like my muscles felt like so tapped out. So knowing why was kind of nice, I guess, and that it wasn't overtraining. But it also was like, okay, first of all, is it safe to go do this 50K race that we think is going to take about 6 hours? And it's World Champs, so it's going to be pretty high intensity. I'm going to be in a foreign country for 10 days by myself before my husband was going to get there. And so if I were to miscarry, are there like facilities around that I can get to? Like, what's the USATF medical staff look like? And I had to talk with them too and let them know, like, if something happens on course, like, you need to know this. So if I have to go to the hospital, like, you know what to tell someone. Yeah, and then like asking a couple people. Me and Ellie Perrier were the same year in college, and so I messaged her pretty quickly because she raced at World Champs in the 1500 on the track, but she was pregnant, so I was kind of like, how did you feel? Like, is there any chance I'm gonna feel okay doing this? And she kind of was like, I don't know, maybe not. And no one was like very optimistic that I'd feel good because I was gonna be hitting race day we thought maybe at about 8 weeks pregnant, which is kind of when all the hormones peak for a lot of people. Yeah, and then it was kind of a conversation too of like, to be frank, like, do we continue with this or not? And what does that look like? And also weighing that with my contract was up at the end of the year, and there was like a very real fear of like, do I want to risk losing my job over this? And going into this performance that was supposed to be something I was going to take into contract negotiations with me, is that gonna happen? And like, yeah, just like a lot of big life questions to ask in the moment. Ultimately, I was told it was safe to race as long as I felt okay. So I figured I had to try because that seemed better than not trying. And I only made it 4 hours and a little over halfway into the race before I had to drop out because I was just feeling like so tapped out and I couldn't stop throwing up. I was pretty nauseous at that point. So that wasn't super fun, and kind of had a little meltdown in the med tent with the USATF staff, and most of them didn't know what was going on either, except for a couple of people. So that was tough too, not being able to like tell anyone why. And I kept seeing like friends on course too, and they were like, I heard later, and they thought I looked really bad and not like myself. And I was like, yeah, I felt really bad and not like myself. Yeah, so it's kind of like, I guess my training plans and race plans were immediately impacted by the pregnancy, and then also looking forward of like when to tell sponsors or not. It was a really awkward timing period of when to announce it, and I ended up announcing it publicly, I think in like 10 weeks, because I needed to tell my sponsors why I DNF'd. And then I had to be pretty transparent going into negotiations, or I felt like that was best anyway, leading with like, I'm pregnant, instead of sign me and then, oh, by the way, I can't race until like next September if I continue down this path. So yeah, there's a lot of like difficult conversations to be had and decisions to be made, but we're here now.
I hate that so much of that pressure and decision making was on you. A lot of those that maybe are not top of mind for someone who's not competing at the top of the sport, but also just in a very compressed time frame of having to make decisions like that.
Yeah.
Maybe elaborate a little bit more on when you did come home and sort of had made the decisions that you needed to make. How do you feel like that then, when things kind of settled a little bit, how did that impact both your feelings and emotions and the way that you were able to move and train?
I think training wise, I kind of went into Worlds 2 with a bit of an SI injury that I'd been kind of dealing with since like June of last year. And kind of similar to what everyone has said, I was so surprised at how quickly the pregnancy affected even like an existing injury and like slowed down that healing process. And then it's unfortunate it was like in my pelvis too, which is now undergoing like structural changes. So that took a while, and I was like off and on trying to heal that. Figured out biking a lot. I raced a 10K in Hawaii on the road in December at 18 weeks, and it was fine, but I definitely like was not running that fast at that point. Just because I'd been biking so much to try and get my back to heal, and then it probably took till January to heal that. But by that point, like I'm over halfway, and so pregnancy has been a lot of hiking. I've texted Emkay a lot about being injured and pregnant at the same time. Is kind of unfortunate. But lifting's been okay, so I've been leaning into that, and yeah, it's been just kind of an adjustment of like, what can my body do right now? And then things probably really didn't settle until maybe 6 to 8 weeks ago, I would say, training wise.
All right, I want to come back to some pieces of that conversation, but I want to make sure we get to Rachel as well. Rachel, you've actually just like this week posted a good bit about what these kind of early weeks looked like for you. So I'll encourage people to go read what you've shared there too. But talk about that. Where were you in training, racing life when you found out, and what were those initial feelings and reactions?
Yeah, so I found out in December, like end of December. I was 5 weeks pregnant, I think, at that point. And yeah, Drew and I were trying. We had talked about wanting to have kids this year. And so, pretty much right after my season ended at the Golden Trail Series final, we kind of started trying. I think I had a tough year in the trails last year. I got sick a bunch. I got COVID a couple of times. I got COVID at the Golden Trail Series final. And in November, I'm not sure if it was long COVID or a miscarriage, but I felt terrible all of November. Had like the worst period with the worst cramps that I've ever had. And it was really late too. Like, I think it was like 6 weeks between periods. So I don't know. It could have been a miscarriage at that point, but we were still trying. And then December was when I got the positive pregnancy test, which was really fun. I think I was kind of at a point then where I I was in the off season. I've been training a little bit, but just because of like long COVID or miscarriage or whatever was happening in November, I wasn't feeling that great in training. And I was also kind of at the point where sponsors were starting to ask about what my season was going to be like the next year and kind of like what races I had on the schedule. So it was kind of weird because I felt like I needed to plan out my season and try to get excited for some races, but I also knew that we were trying to have kids, and it hadn't happened in November. So I think in December, I mean, it hadn't been that long that we were trying, but in December, I was kind of like, okay, I need to like start planning races. And I was thinking, like, if this doesn't happen soon, like, if it's April or May when we end up getting pregnant, or if we're not pregnant by April or May, then what happens then? Do we keep trying, or I don't want to miss 2 seasons? So I think that's something that I'm thinking about, just with how trails are in the summer, and a lot of the sub ultras are kind of in the summer and fall. You kind of have to plan out like when you're going to have kids, if you don't want to miss 2 seasons in a row. So I think those are some of the things that I was thinking through early on, or as we were trying to get pregnant. And yeah, just unique things that pro runners have to think about during pregnancy.
I'm curious, just that brings an interesting piece into the conversation about like family planning. When is the point that you actually tell your sponsors? Like, is it in the planning phase, or is it when you have actual news to share? How was that from your perspective? Did you end up sharing that you were planning, or did you wait until you actually found out?
Yeah, I waited until I found out, just because I didn't know how long it was going to take for us to get pregnant. And I had an eating disorder in college and had a regular period, but still, I'm like, I don't know, like, what's going on with my body, if there are things from having an eating disorder that would prevent me from having kids, or things like that. So I kind of just wanted to tell my sponsors when I knew for sure that something had changed, because I didn't know if it was going to take a year or 2 years or however long. So I didn't really want that to be a topic of conversation until it needed to be.
I'm kind of skipping around the order of questions that I originally had, but it keeps coming up. I want to talk about it. What was the how did you break that news to your sponsor, and what was their reaction?
Yeah, for me, my sponsors have been super, super supportive, which has been really awesome. I was telling my husband this morning, I think that been at Merrill. He's the Merrill rep there, but I think outside of like family and close friends, he's been the one that's like the most excited for us about having a baby. He's a dad and just so supportive. So he's been awesome. And then Sunto and Morton are my other sponsors, and they've been really supportive too. I was kind of in the middle of negotiations when I told them. So yeah, it was kind of weird timing because we started negotiating and like talking about things, and then I said, oh, by the way, I just found out I'm pregnant, and they were planning on upping me and stayed with that. And so that's been really awesome, just to have companies behind me that are supporting me throughout this process. And my contract with Merrill wasn't up this past year, but it is this coming year. So I think that was another thing that we thought through with pregnancy, was like when our contract's ending and things. But then ultimately we're like, we want to start a family this year, and we feel like sponsors will support me. I felt like I had a good amount of trust in my sponsors, and yeah, I feel like we were kind of just like, we're not going to be anxious about what happens job wise. Like if they want to support me, that's great, but we're going to do what we want to with our family, and then everything else will fall in line and we'll figure it out.
I also love, though, that you still had that confidence that your sponsors would support you, even if you were willing to take the risk. In those contract negotiations, did your pregnancy change any of the like duties or responsibilities that you have with those sponsors, or the way that you show up for those responsibilities?
I can't. So I have NDAs in my contract, so I can't share like too many details, but in some of my contracts, I do have pregnancy clauses, which is really great, and maternity leave and things like that. And others, I don't, but I do feel like I have a good enough relationship and have talked with those athlete reps about what this year is going to look like, that they have their expectations and kind of know what the year is going to look like, and kind of like agreed when I was talking with them about everything on how it was going to look. So I felt super supportive, which has been really great, and it's relieved a lot of stress too.
I want to take a moment to thank SOAR Running for their support. SOAR Running design and produce running apparel that does justice to the commitment and passion of runners globally. Encompassing textile innovation, pioneering design technology, sports science, and the real-world experiences of runners, their collections are designed specifically for running, for high-performance racing, and also for off-road adventure and endurance. And that's what I'm most excited about. Their trail line is specifically designed to be technical and durable for long adventures. It is high-performance trail gear, blending innovative fabrics and detailing for off-road resilience, function, and endurance. SOAR's innovation and ground-up approach to product development results in a new way of thinking about trail running apparel. Check them out at soarrunning.com. That's SOAR running.com. Grayson, if I can come back to you, you just recently announced your sponsorship change with Saucony. Talk a little bit about that process. And you had already sort of mentioned sort of the complexity of coming up on a renewal at the end of the year. Talk a little bit about that process.
Yeah, it was an interesting time to be re-signing. I had been with my previous sponsor, Saucony, for about 6 years, and this was kind of the first time I had had the chance to explore other options. So I was kind of excited going into that. Not necessarily that I wanted to leave Saucony, but just like to reassess my value in the marketplace as an athlete and kind of see what that looked like. But it's also tough because a lot of our contracts do have the maternity clause, but that's only valid for when you're within that contract window. And as soon as you're outside of it, there's no protection for you. So that was a little bit scary because in theory, and we kind of saw it with Emma Bates last week too, but they can just say it's business decisions, or this is just our budget, or we were going to do this anyway. and you have like no recourse really and no way of knowing what the truth is and like why you might have faced a reduction. Yeah, so that was kind of just like pretty tough to take into negotiations, which is why I wanted to be upfront with brands right away and kind of lay it all out there and say like these are the cards I have and how do you feel about this? So it was interesting. I talked to a couple brands and my agent. I work with an agent too. And Saucony, when I told them, they just said congrats. Like that was kind of it. There was no like nothing more. And then that relationship obviously ended, and I can't really talk too much about the details of it. I wasn't dropped, but yeah, it had to come to an end. So then talking to other brands was helpful. And then Solomon was like, no big deal. Like, we get it. And we believe in you as an athlete. And this doesn't affect like your past results or like how good we think you are. Just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you're ruined. So that was like a pretty cool message to receive. Because I also got a lot of like, I lost like 5,000 followers after saying I was pregnant. So I was starting to feel like, oh my gosh, people think I'm cooked. Like it's all over. Yeah. So it's, yeah, a ride, a roller coaster of a ride.
Talk about maybe some of the reaction that you've received and what it has meant to you coming out with this announcement of Solomon picking you up at this stage of your pregnancy and sort of making that a big piece of their announcement and their support of you in the beginning.
I think it's really cool. The way it was received was amazing, and so many women seemed to resonate with it and like it really inspired them. I am very grateful that they see value in that, and at the same time I heard a couple times that like I should feel lucky that I got a contract because I'm pregnant, and my ultimate wish, I guess, is moving forward that that's not a lucky thing for a female athlete to have happen. Like that should be the norm. Like we shouldn't be like, oh, I'm so lucky I got picked up, but I'm a 2-time world champion. Like what about my results before getting pregnant? I want that to matter too, and for other people too. So I think it's really cool to have like the visibility, and it was cool to have the maternity shoot be my announcement photos. I think that's awesome, and I hope that sets a precedent moving forward that this is what should be happening, not like a lucky thing to have happen.
Totally, 100%. I think it was, yeah, I just think the visibility of it was very cool and made a statement that is important.
Yeah.
Mary, coming back around to you, what did it go for you breaking the news to your sponsors? What was their reaction? What was your experience?
So I ended up telling both sponsors before I even got to a viability like doctor's appointment. And so I was kind of like, I think I'm pregnant. Like I have not seen it. I have not had a doctor confirm it. And so what had happened was I'm in a 3-year contract with Kraft. So I'm protected. And, that was one of the first things that my manager, when I was on a call with him, because he wanted to know, like, okay, you did Kodiak, like, what's next? And so kind of had to be like, pregnancy. So what's funny is when I was reviewing the contract in October 2024, I was 37 years old. I turned 38 in April, single. I read the contract and I was like, what a wonderful maternity clause. I would probably never use that. And I even told Abel, my manager, I was like, I really value that you guys protect your female athletes. And I believe, Emkay, you're the first pregnant athlete for Kraft. Is that right? Yeah. And so I read it and I was like, that's great that they have this protection for other women. I really value that in the company. My message to any woman out there, I don't care if you're 22 or 40 signing with a brand, that language needs to be in there. You need to be protected because you don't know if, like, you may think you never want kids things can change. You could get pregnant, decide I'm keeping this child, like, anything could happen, or you could decide you want to adopt or use a surrogate. Like, that time is so needing to be protected that, like, when you're reviewing these contracts, like, you should not be signing something that does not protect you, because you never know if you're going to need it. And I think in this day and age, it's wrong for a brand to expect a female athlete to sign something like a long-term partnership with them that doesn't have that kind of protection. And I also think there should be protection for partner, to be protected around the time of birth or adoption when the child's coming into the home. Because I don't think there should be an expectation to race during that time. You should be, supported as a human. So I knew that clause was in there. I knew I was protected. And it's just really nice to hear from someone saying, financially, you are protected. This time is about you and your family, and like, let us know how we can support you, with no additional expectations. And I actually did offer that. I was like, if there's any way I could be of like different assistance to the brand, please let me know. Because in a sense, I almost felt bad because I had like never thought I would use this maternity clause, and I had like expressed that to them like when I had originally signed. And obviously things can change, but my life changed very drastically starting about a year ago this time. And so you just never know how things are going to play out for you. And I'm very grateful that, I read the whole contract. I'm a former lawyer. I knew what it said. And so I knew I was protected with Kraft. And then with the feed, I had signed a 1 year with an option year, and it was their exclusive option year to decide if they wanted to sign me same terms for the following year. And they had expressed after Kodiak, and that's right around the time that, we do go through brand renegotiations the fall, that they wanted to re-sign me. And I didn't feel right about just like signing and acting like it was going to be a normal year. So I asked for a call and I disclosed to them, and they immediately said, change is nothing. We're really excited for you. We'd love to still support you. So I had a very positive experience so far with both Kraft and the feed.
Okay, how about you? How did it change or what happened when you broke the news to your sponsors?
I have a very similar experience to Mary, just because we have the same team manager, Abel. But I remember I waited to tell him for a while because I did really want to run Boston, and I kind of just like wanted that to be a thing that I did without, without people worrying about me. Like, I love Abel, but he is kind of a worrier. And so I had this like fear that I would be like, I'm pregnant. And he's like, please don't race, I don't think he would, but that was just kind of where my head was at. And I also didn't want the word to get out because I wanted to wait to defer my Western States Golden ticket until I was 12 weeks pregnant, because I didn't want to like give up the ticket and then maybe have a miscarriage and it become this whole like public thing that I didn't want to have to deal with. And so originally I had just planned to tell Abel at that, like right before that point. But like, week after week I go on Strava, and I've already like bought tickets to Boston because this was all before I was pregnant. And, I'm running like 25 miles a week on Strava, and I'm sure Abel's just like, okay, like, how's training going? And I'm like, it's fine. And eventually I was just like, it's not fine. I'm pregnant. And he was like, just so stoked. And my husband's on the team too. So I remember he called Tommy, like, and immediately after I hung up with him, he called Tommy and was just like so excited for both of us. And I've never felt any pressure from them, which was really nice. I wanted to continue to race just because I thought it would be fun. And so I had like all these plans. I was like, I'm going to run Broken Arrow, VK, and then I'm going to run Mammoth Trail Fest uphill, like however far along I was going to be at that point. But obviously I found out my Achilles was torn and none of that happened. And so then I remember getting pretty stressed about like, well, I'm not doing anything like for the brand. And so I kept asking them like, hey, like, you guys are going to be at this event. Like, let me know if you want me to do a shakeout or this event and that event. And they're like, Emkay, you're fine. Like, just, do the things that you need to do to take care of yourself. And I had a pretty positive experience as well, because our maternity clause is very, very good. But I remember Abel telling me that if I needed it for any reason, like if Tommy wasn't going to use all of his paternity months, that I could also like basically add that to my time, which he's not using any of them really. And so, if I do need additional time, that's been offered to me, which is really positive. And my other two sponsors, I think the one I felt the most guilt about was Raid, because I signed with them and then found out I was pregnant like a week later. And I was like, oh my God, I swear I didn't do this on purpose. But Kyle has been like he was also very excited for me and has never, I'd never had like a negative experience there, but I felt bad about it for sure. But we're just meant to feel bad about these things, I think, even though we shouldn't. So yeah, I mean, I've had a very positive experience, but I also had a similar thought to Rachel, where I remember signing my contract because I'm in my last year with Craft for this go round, and I remember when I was negotiating my contract for this 3 years, talking to my coach and being like, okay, so when do you think would be the perfect time to get pregnant so that I have this amount of time and this amount of time and these things, and I don't have to worry about renegotiating and stuff. And eventually I just had to come to the conclusion that if a brand does not see my value on the other side of pregnancy, then I just don't care, actually, which is hard to come to because it is our job. But I think it's a mistake at this point for brands to not invest just in pregnant athletes, whether you're already in a contract with them or if you're in a situation like Grayson where she's picking up a new one. All of us are elite athletes. We're all at the top of our game. Why would you be yeah, she's done now?
So part of what you said there brings up an interesting question I had, and not as an unprofessional athlete myself. What does it look like to, when I think of representing a brand, a lot of what I visualize is racing and racing in that brand. What does it look like to represent a brand when you are not racing? And how do those, as much as you can talk about, how does that representation change, or the way that you show up change for anybody? That was a really open question.
I know for me, I was Craft sponsors Mammoth Trail Fest now. And so I was if you guys need any help with activations, I'm going to be there, because this is my community, this Eastern Sierra community. So just let me know if you want help from me. But I don't think they wanted to put that kind of pressure on me.
Yeah, I think when I think about it, racing is part of our job, but I don't want to say it's a very small part, because we're all training to race and everything, but I think that it is just a part of the job. The other part is going to photo shoots, doing podcasts, talking about your brands that you're representing, posting on social media about the brands, and all that you can do while you're pregnant. And so a lot of stuff doesn't change. A lot of times you are still training. Sometimes you're able to race if you are able to and want to. So some of that doesn't change, but if it does change, there's a lot of other things that you can do that align with a brand, whether it's photo shoots, podcasts, posting about their stuff, going to brand events. Grayson just went out to a brand event a few weeks ago and is very pregnant right now. So I think that there are a lot of things that don't change when you're representing a brand, even when you are pregnant, and it's valuable to them.
I wanted to add, Rachel's been racing in her second trimester and crushing it, so she's still out there.
Oh, thanks. I'm getting slower, but that's okay. It's fun to push myself. I think that's what I've been enjoying during pregnancy. I'm getting slower, but I'm at least able to run some and push myself, which is super fun.
Grayson, you sounded like you had something to say.
Oh, I was going to say Rachel was at same said brand event racing while I was on the sidelines cheering. And Emkay was there commentating.
So I want to talk about racing a little bit too. Rachel, I think it is empowering to hear you say, I'm really enjoying still pushing myself. Because I think even, I'm going to show my age here. It's been 13 years since I was pregnant, and the the mindset was a little bit different at that time. It was changing. I did run through most of my pregnancies, both times. But I'm not sure I could have shown up at a race and pushed myself and not had a lot of criticism and a lot of eyes. And I think it's cool to see you doing that and see you excited about doing that. Talk a little bit about what goes into the decision to race and maybe how it's different in this phase right now, or if it's not.
Thanks. Yeah, it's been super fun. I think I'm kind of, maybe it's just a weird mindset thing that I have, or I'm like weird in some way, but I think part of the reason why I love running in general is just I love like finding my own limits and pushing myself, whether I'm pregnant or not. And I think that's like a main draw to running for me. So I feel like um, that takes a lot of pressure off, because I know that if I do my best, I can always be proud of that result, whether I have a good race or a bad race. And so I think that helps me a lot as I'm running professionally, just to kind of take pressure off of races, like I said, whether I'm pregnant or not. But it has been really fun just to be able to race a little and push myself during pregnancy. And yeah, I think maybe it's different too being on the trails, because I feel like if I were on the track or the roads, I would not want to race, because you see those times and you know what you could run in a 5K or 10K or marathon or something, and you're not running those times. But the trails are so different and every race is so different that I feel like it's hard to even compare the times that I would run, you know, not pregnant versus pregnant. And I'm not doing like the really competitive races. Like I still don't think I would want to hop into like a USA championship race or something like that. But yeah, it's fun to be able to do some of these races. And I think another mindset shift that I've had at this time is kind of leaning into curiosity instead of comparison. And I think that's been really, really helpful, because it's easy to compare your times pre-pregnancy to pregnancy. But and I think maybe I'll still look at those times, but I think that instead of having like a comparison mindset, I'm able to look at those times and be like more curious about it and be like, what can I run in a mile at like 12 weeks pregnant, versus being so hard on myself that I can't run that fast. So I think I've really leaned into that curiosity instead of comparison during pregnancy. And that's also helped me to be able to just be confident going into races and to have fun with them too.
Love that. I love that. MK, I want to come over and ask you too, because I think you were also racing into pregnancy. And I don't remember if, well, you tell me, was it your Achilles that stopped you from racing earlier than maybe you wanted to?
Yeah, I raced all the way through Broken Arrow VK, which I think I was like maybe 22 or 24 weeks pregnant. I can't really remember. But I did a local half marathon trail race here in Reno and had a ton of fun with that. It was like a day where I was
Won it,
just
right?
I was second to Helen Mino Faulkner.
Okay.
And I wasn't planning on racing that hard, but this guy wouldn't let me pass him in the first couple miles. So then I had to like drop him, but then he was like really close to me the whole day. So I ended up going full gas and I was so trashed after that. My pride really got in the way, but I did beat him. And then I did Broken Arrow VK, which was awesome. But my Achilles just kept getting worse and worse. And I knew that I was going to have to probably get surgery at some point, because I knew that the Haglund's deformity was there. But I just like kind of on a whim was like, I'm going to get the MRI now, because I had initially planned to get the MRI like right after birth, try to like, schedule surgery, all that stuff. And I got the MRI, I think somewhere around like 28 weeks maybe. And found out that my Achilles was also torn. And so I was like, this makes sense as to why I literally can never like get this thing to unswell, or like, I was just limping around, which probably isn't good for your back when you're pregnant either. And so I was glad that I got that MRI, because I would have kept running and like pushing through that pain. I think at the time I found out that I had the tear, I was already like maybe 18 to 20 pounds heavier. And so, my surgeon was like, you're going to keep gaining weight. You will rupture this thing if you don't stop running. And so it was like very abrupt, very, very sad, because it wasn't just like, oh, I got to choose to like slowly stop running. It was like one day it was just like, you're done now. But I cried for like maybe 3 days, and then I was like, okay, it just is what it is. Like I can do all these other activities. Swimming actually felt so much better than running anyways, that when I actually just gave in and like got in the pool, I was like, oh my God, it's so nice to not weigh 25 pounds more. Like, this is awesome. But yeah, the Achilles was the reason that I stopped running. I mean, otherwise I was having fun just being like, just go move for an hour or two every day. Like, it doesn't matter if you have to walk some days or run some days, but yeah, I am very glad that I didn't end up like 38 weeks pregnant with a ruptured Achilles.
Yeah. Grayson, maybe throwing this question to you in terms of sort of like exploring your limits and finding out how do you feel like you were able to find, like specifically maybe in world championships, able to explore your limit and find where the limit was for you?
Yeah, I think, well, I consulted like my OB and Teddy Brose. He's my primary doctor, but has a lot more like running knowledge too, and just kind of was like, are there any limits or caps on this from like a safety standpoint? And all of them said no. They said like, watch out for overheating because you can be more prone to that in pregnancy, and then dehydration. So kind of went into the race knowing like, well, my hydration plan, the puking really threw this off, but I tried to drink a lot more than I normally would have. And luckily it wasn't really that hot there, so the overheating wasn't a huge deal. But I think we've all like, or I've seen like, oh, you shouldn't get your heart rate up above X beats per minute. And they're like, no, you can get it up as high as you want to and feel comfortable as long as you're not like getting dizzy or feeling faint. So yeah, I think I got mine pretty high in the first that first climb at Worlds, and yeah, it was nice knowing like there's no danger or nothing that I do unless I really mess up the hydration stuff is gonna really like cause any harm to me or the baby. So that was like nice to hear and try. And I still definitely thought about it like in the race, especially when things are really going downhill, like, oh my gosh, am I doing something bad? But yeah, hearing them say like it's okay, that was kind of cool.
Real quick, I'm afraid I'm going to keep you guys for like 3 hours here if I don't sort of speed through some of my questions. But so I want to come to
Lauren, I don't mean to like slow it down more. But do you mind if I weigh in on like why I haven't chosen to race while pregnant?
yes,
Like I just feel like that's a important message, I feel like.
absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm really glad that there's not an expectation to participate in some way. And for me, it's not about lining up as a totally different athlete, knowing I'm going to be very slow compared to my prior self. What I have found to be the most comfort to myself, and I think is why my training has looked so good as a pregnant athlete, is I'm never committed to doing a certain distance on a given day. And I'm often adjusting it out there based on how I'm feeling, or if it's like a warmer day, like I don't want to get dehydrated, I don't want to get depleted, I don't want to overheat. And so there have been a lot of runs that like I've cut short from the intention of when I was going out. And so for me, it's like, yes, I could, obviously my race distances tend to be 50-mile and up. So that did not appeal when I got pregnant, because I'm like, I don't want to be out there for, if fit, I run 100K in 9.5 hours. Like, how long is it going to take me? Not, at the same level of fitness. It's not so I didn't feel comfortable doing like my typical race distances. I realized I could do sub ultra, like, and like participate in them in some way. But I still like the idea of like, I get to choose how much I do on a given day. And a lot of my training has been time-based too, which has been very liberating. And so I've just really valued like not being committed to a certain distance. And that's given me a lot of comfort in my training. And I've been able to push myself, I guess you could say, with workouts that have like rest built in. And that just like feels better for me personally.
Well, so that kind of leads into an interesting question then is like, as endurance athletes, I feel like we are used to pushing ourselves. We are used to pushing through discomfort and, dealing with dehydration and heat and all of these sorts of things. How do you decide or determine for yourself where appropriate discomfort is and when it's not?
I mean, I can speak from a workout perspective, I guess. I haven't pain caved myself in the same way. Like, I go into it with like, this is a threshold effort. And I don't really think I've like, even when I've been given like short intervals, like whether that's 30 seconds or a minute, like I can't feel the same VO2 max effort like I would normally. So I honestly think the human body kind of has this like internal governor of like, you can't get your heart rate as high pretty quickly. That was my experience because I felt like I was like running things hard and my heart rate zones changed very quickly. But I just have always approached it with, if I'm feeling at all uncomfortable, I just leave a little in the tank, and like that go to the well experience is waiting for me on the other side.
I like that. I like that a lot. For anybody, are there any particular tools or resources, or even, sort of like Mary was just saying, a mantra or a guide that you've used to help you through training while pregnant, even just from like a physical standpoint? I think about like belly bands and things like that. But again, we didn't really have the last time that I was pregnant. And so trying to run long into it was really uncomfortable. What kind of things are you doing to make yourself comfortable out there for the sport that you want to be training through?
Belly band, yeah, was a 10 out of 10. Although I will tell you, it's like modern day heat training. It's the worst. It's so hot. But I think I told Grayson this like a couple of times when we were texting in the beginning, just like about, and one of my best friends is like on the same timeline as Grayson. So I feel like I've been having a couple of these conversations, but like we are professional athletes, and so therefore we're really good at listening to our bodies, right? Like we're really good at pushing our bodies to a certain extent, backing off when we need to most of the time. And so I think you just have to like trust your intuition. At least that was my experience, like with training and stuff. Like you know what your body should and shouldn't feel like most of the time. And so I think just trusting yourself, because I think it's really easy to get caught up in like looking at what other people are doing, or even like listening to somebody who just like does not, like I had a lot of women who meant well but like are not athletes who tried to give me advice about like things that I should be feeling, and it's like, no, that's just not going to be my experience. And so yeah, just like trusting your body goes a long way. And I think that like even women who aren't necessarily athletes or athletic like could learn from that as well. I think there's just like too much information out there, and a mother's intuition goes a lot further than you would think, even when you're pregnant. So yeah, I think that was what I told Grayson a lot, was just like you'll feel it. Like your body will give you the signs. It'll tell you like when it's time to run hard or when it's time to not run hard. And that was kind of my big.
Anybody else have a
Yeah, I've had, yeah, lots of conversations with people like MK, and that's been super helpful. Molly Huddle told me that, and it was nice coming from her, but she was like, the training and the athlete that you are in pregnancy has no dictation on the athlete you are outside of pregnancy. So, yeah, like some people, they just can do it. That doesn't mean they're better runners than you or better athletes like on the other side, and vice versa. Like pregnancy is such like this weird timeline of 10 months that like things look completely different than they might otherwise. So that was helpful to hear coming from like a multi-time American record holder. And then I love and will continue to sing the praises of pelvic floor PTs. And I started seeing one like, well, for my SI joint, because I learned that the problem I'd been having all year was like a pelvic floor issue, which is kind of crazy and probably would have needed to see one anyway, even if I wasn't pregnant. But yeah, they've just been like a really great resource, and there's so many muscles down there that are like super important for running and for pregnancy. So learning about that has been great. And then I'm just kind of leaning into like doing that as kind of like preparation for postpartum and hoping that that makes the comeback a lot easier. And then also prenatal massage has been like very nice. If you can get the pillow or you can lay face down, I would recommend that too, especially for like athlete bodies. And like we get massages all the time when we're training, so this is kind of like a different version of training, and yeah, that has been very helpful too.
I love that.
Yeah, I think for me,
Rachel,
as far as resources, the belly bands have been helpful. I've been using this one called Always Up, and it was created by runners, and so that's been really great, especially for training and things like that. I have a really good doctor too. I go to the same one that Grayson goes to, Dr. Teddy, and he's great. And I can message him whenever and kind of say like, hey, I've been feeling this. What does that mean? Do I need to back off? Or is everything okay? And he's been really, really awesome. So I feel like having a good doctor is really important, and one that understands running too, because I went to a doctor before him in Boulder when I was kind of going through like, is this a miscarriage or long COVID? And we did a bunch of blood tests, and he didn't really understand running, and he flagged a bunch of things in my blood tests that Dr. Teddy was kind of like, no, that's just a thing that like runners have. And so anyway, I think going to a doctor that really understands running is super important. So yeah, that's been a great resource too. And then just listening to friends too has been great.
And I'll add on there a doctor that's accessible for all of those questions that you have. I think that that's really important too. I'm interested in maybe coming over to Emkay about postpartum experience. I think it is really cool and really significant that the culture around returning to running and returning to sport is relaxed and accepting and starting to be, in a general sense, more on a like find your own timeline. You don't have to force it. You don't need to be back to racing 3 weeks later. From an elite athlete perspective, do you feel that way? And what does that return to running and return to performance look like for you? Or has it looked like for you? Yours is a little complicated with
I was gonna say
Achilles
mine's a little bit complicated because I had surgery 5 weeks postpartum. But at the same time, like I knew that I didn't need to try to come back that quickly anyways. I don't know. I think that the whole like 6 weeks postpartum, like you're good to go, is kind of bullshit, in my personal opinion. Especially just based on how I felt, 6 weeks postpartum, Achilles surgery aside. And so I think that surgery in a way was almost like a blessing for me because it kept me from asking my coach if I could do anything stupid. He wouldn't have let me, but bugging him about it. But it was also fortunate, I think, that I could get it done so quickly because I remember talking to my team manager and being like, hey, I need to get this done, but it's like within my maternity leave anyways. And he was like, yeah, like you need to get surgery. You need to get surgery. So it was kind of nice that it all kind of fell into place there. But my return to run has been a little bit slower because of that. I started run walking, I guess in February. So that would have been 4 months postpartum almost. And honestly, it was nice because then I felt like my body was mostly back to normal post-pregnancy. So it's just been kind of more like balancing like the comeback with my tendon itself. But life is a lot different. Scheduling training around this little guy is, I'm sure you guys can still hear him in the background. He's losing it. Is a lot of work. I'm fortunate that I have a lot of support here. We live very close to my in-laws. My parents live 13 minutes down the road and they're both retired. And so, as of right now, like training is still short, I'm putting this in parentheses, short enough that I can be like, hey mom, like, do you want to take Emery on a walk while I run? And that's like fine. But I do think that like after, like my husband's running the Madeira Island Ultra Trail in like 3 weeks. And I think after that, he and I are going to have to like sit down and actually start planning our lives a little bit better, because like I just refuse to wake up early. He doesn't want to wake up early. And we just have to like kind of move some stuff around, because like my parents are very helpful and I know that they love to help. But I also, they're retired and I want them to be able to go on trips and stuff without being like, oh, we have to take care of Emery because MK's got a 2-hour run today. So like, I'm going to have to strike a balance with that at some point soon. But I've been putting it off thus far because I'm like, I'm only running like 2 out of the 3 days and, you know, whatever. But I also have access to a treadmill at my house and stuff, which was very purposeful so that if I do have a day where I can't find childcare and Tommy's at work, like, I just do it when he's napping, which is what I do when I bike most of the time at this point. So yeah, I think I'm still figuring it out. We're hoping to like maybe put him into daycare of some sort or something like that if I decide to run Western States in 2027, like in the build up to that, because I just want to have like consistent, I don't have to feel like I am asking too much of my parents, but also I have like 2 or 3 hours a day where I can just like go train without worrying about it. But for now, it's like, I can figure it out. So I don't know yet.
What did it look like for you with your other jobs? You also are co-host of a podcast. You also coach. I think everybody here coaches, and that's a real one-on-one personal service that I imagine is very difficult to take a maternity leave from in the way you might a traditional job. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, I talked to a lot of my athletes probably when I was like 6 months into pregnancy, because I had finally like come up with like a way that I could do it maybe that felt sustainable. Because I don't know, I guess like with some, you know, coaching conglomerates, like, you know, people can pick up athletes while you're like in that downtime, but I just felt weird about that because I don't know, those people don't have the same relationship with my athletes that I do. And so plus it kind of worked out that like my pregnancy lined up with like the end of the season for a lot of people. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pick him up.
You're fine.
Oh.
This is real life.
Yeah, bro is on the move, but he can't move himself a lot of times. So, he does love a screen. And so, yeah, what I ended up doing is when I got close to delivering, I wrote training out like 4 weeks, you know, in advance. And I basically told all my athletes, like, I would continue to do that every week until I gave birth, because I knew that realistically, I wasn't going to take that much time away from coaching because I would want something to do with my brain. And so I think I had written like 4 to 6 weeks for most people by the time I went into the hospital. So that was nice. That was pretty easy for the most part. And then Danny and I just kind of went like week by week with the podcast. And it ended up that she had surgery like the day after I gave birth. And so we were both kind of just like, well, guess the podcast is taking a break. But again, it was like the end of the season anyways. Like Golden Trail had already happened when I went in to give birth, like the weekend before. So we just kind of went week by week, and I delivered early. But I also like knew I was going to deliver early. People kept telling me I was crazy, but I was like very prepared for that because I just knew it was going to happen.
Okay, I'm going to come over to Mary next. Mary is actually my coach, so I'm familiar with what she's with what her plan is. But I'll let you talk a little bit about how do you plan to manage your full-time coaching job and maternity leave at the same time?
Sure. I'm convinced my daughter is coming early as well.
Yeah.
I have no reason, no metric to give for that other than like, I just think she's going to come
intuition.
a week or 2 early. Yeah, I really think she's coming a week or 2 early. So I sent out an email to all my athletes. Oh gosh, it was probably like a week or 2 ago, just saying like, help me help you. Like, you know, as your summer travel plans and everything like develops, please put it on the calendar right away. Races, let's talk about them sooner than later. Like put them on the calendar. If you want to talk about summer training or your fall plans, like let's schedule a call now. And then my plan is to only take 2 to 3 weeks off, like probably totally. And I, like MK just had said, I want to have probably about 6 weeks visible for everyone, more if possible, which is more than I usually have. I usually have 2 to 3 weeks at a time visible, and then I'm working 2 to 3 weeks ahead, but I'm not like sharing that with the athlete because there's always going to be things you have to change, and you don't want the athlete to get like attached to the original plan. It's like you have to change it. So I need to have visible more than ever before, and I know that will lead to some double work for me, but what I don't want is a scenario where I go into labor and someone doesn't know what they're doing like next week. So I am married to a coach as well who is like a more experienced coach than me. He's been my coach for a number of years. So my plan is during that 2 to 3 week period that I'm giving myself for transitioning like home with a newborn, where I am the food supply, to have him like have all my athletes email both of us if they need something, and then he'll likely be the one who like replies and helps them during that time. But if I'm good, it could be me. So that's what I plan to do with my maternity leave. Because when you are self-employed and in a relationship business where you are the coach, they are the athlete, I don't get a maternity leave from that job. So, you got to just kind of prepare and just be as organized as possible. And, I have coached a number of pregnant athletes, like I'm probably at about 20 now, who I've coached through pregnancy and postpartum, so I know they will understand. But then, of course, I have athletes who've never been pregnant or men, so, but I'm not worried about it. I know everyone will be patient and understanding and communicate what they need.
Grayson and Rachel, you guys coach together, or not together, but under the same collective. Talk a little bit about how that might look for either of you, and are you able to sort of feed off of each other in that way?
I think my plan was very similar to Mary's, about having training out that far and then hopefully only taking 2 to 3 weeks off. And then I did ask Courtney and Rachel to be my stand-ins for if adjustments need to be made or people have questions. Yeah, I don't know if you had a different answer, Rach.
No, that's pretty similar to me. I think I definitely want to have training written ahead of time just so that athletes are prepared and know what they're doing. And I just communicate with them about everything that's going on. I think most athletes are very, very understanding. So that's great. So yeah, I think having a couple weeks to adjust to having a baby in the house and recovering a little bit will be great. And then I do think I'll get bored if I don't have anything to do. So I think it will be nice to kind of have that coaching side of things, especially while I'm kind of not able to train or run really at all. And so I think that'll be good. And then my husband, Drew, actually has a really, really good paternity leave as well. I think he has 6 to 8 weeks, something like that. His company is really, really supportive of families and moms and dads. And so that's great. So I think he'll be off too. So we'll kind of both just have the full time to be able to take care of our baby. So I think I'll have enough time and hopefully after a couple of weeks, enough energy to want to get back into coaching and do something.
I think it's interesting to hear you all talk about needing that mental engagement and that mental stimulation. That's when I actually started my coaching business, was postpartum, when I had thought I was going to be a stay-at-home mom and quickly decided I couldn't. I needed more mental engagement and stimulation, and that's when it started for me. Last question I have about postpartum and racing and maternity leave and all these sorts of later project or later I'm not sure what the word I'm looking for is about racing and race deferrals. Like, what does that look like for, maybe I'll just go through one by one. Mary, I'll start with you because I know you earned your ticket to CCC at Kodiak. What does the deferral process look like for that for you? And also maybe for Matt at UTMB as well, if that comes into play.
Yeah, and Grayson and I were actually texting about this because we were like, it wasn't totally clear from the website. It was like, do you sign up and then defer, or do you just get a deferral like by reaching out to them? And we both ended up signing up and then deferring it because that seemed like the process, but I'm not sure if that's correct. I just didn't want to like lose it. So I was like, I'm just gonna sign up. That's how the website reads, and then defer it, and I get 5 years. And UTMB has a great policy for partners too. If you, and I don't know the exact language, perhaps someone does, but it's like a certain amount of time around the due date when you bring a child home from like surrogacy or adoption, your partner can defer their race as well. Right now, Matt is planning to race OCC this year, which, depending on when I deliver, could be about 2 months postpartum. So he's planning to make a quick trip out and do that. I won't travel with her yet. It's just a little too soon with a newborn, but I do plan to travel. He's racing again in September and October. So I will travel then with him. Something that he was planning to do Canyons 100K and ended up changing his mind mostly due to he got a really bad hit of COVID, but he does want to race his way back into Western States at some point. And actually, very unfortunately, Western States currently doesn't have like a deferral process for men. That's something that I think would be nice to see that change effectuated, because I don't remember the man's name and I should know this, but he turned down a golden ticket at Chianti because his wife is due at the end of June. And I don't think that should be happening in this day and age. Like, I think your partner should be able to defer as well. So, I would hope that Western states would consider adding something like that in the future for partners.
Grayson, maybe coming over to you because you are in the same boat with the UTMB system with the OCC deferral, right? 5 years. UTMB gives 5 years. And then they also, if I'm correct, for elite athletes, they will freeze your UTMB score for a period of time. Maybe you understand that better than I do. Maybe you don't. I don't know.
No, yeah, I think that the time that it's deferred, it's frozen. So you have time to come back. Yeah.
Okay. Rachel, how does that work in the Golden Trail system or any of some of the short trail? There's a lot of different short trail systems. How does either like freezing your score or your place or being able to defer race entries work in that system?
Yeah, the nice thing, I think the difference between ultras and sub ultras, I think, or one of the many differences, is I feel like in the ultra space, a lot of your races are races to qualify for your A race that you really want to do. And so you're kind of trying to race a lot to get into races, and you're maybe only racing a few times a year. And with sub ultra races, I feel like the race directors and kind of the different series kind of know who you are, and so I feel like it's pretty easy just to hop back on the circuit when you're ready to a year after. I would be interested, this isn't something I've looked into, but with Golden Trail Series, they have different tiers of travel accommodation and help to travel and stuff monetarily written in. So if you finish top 10, then you're on a certain tier and you get different financial help for travel. If you're top 20, that's under a different tier, but it's top 10 or 20 from the previous year. And I don't know if that is deferred within pregnancy. And if you, like, I finished top 20 last year, so does that roll over to 2027 with Golden Trail Series or not? So I guess, yeah, that's something I should be asking this year. But I do feel like as far as getting back into races, the race directors kind of know who people are, and it's easier, I think, to get bibs and enter into races in the sub ultra category.
So it's sort of a case by case basis, athlete by athlete, race by race. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say I had that experience at least like this year with like Sears and all reached back out to me and was like, hey, we know that you said you were pregnant last year. Do you want to race this year? And I was like, not ready yet. They were like, great, we'll reach out again next year. And like Mont Blanc Marathon, for example, I think the deadline to apply is like April 15th. And they were like, hey, just let us know if you need more time, like deciding. So I feel like, yeah, Sub Ultra is like just a little bit of a different world, but it would be interesting. I bet you if you asked like Greg or somebody, they'd probably give you that sort of protection. It's just probably they've never run into it at this point.
Totally. Yeah, that's what I was thinking too. I bet that they would, or they'd want to work with athletes that are pregnant and
Yeah.
coming back from pregnancy like that. So that is cool that I already like have hope that they would. But yeah, I think that it just hasn't really happened yet.
Yeah.
I'm curious, MK, for you, talking about Western states also, what does the process for that look like both? And is it different as a golden ticket recipient or a lottery entrant, if you know?
It is the same for both golden ticket and lottery entrant. And you basically have until the Friday before the race. So like the day before to defer. You know, if you were to find out you were pregnant like 2 days before the race, you could get your pregnancy deferral as long as you had, you know, like proof. So yeah, Western states for women is unlimited is the wrong word, but like, you know, you can come back whenever, basically. There is no timeline on it, which is very cool. That is like the main reason that I got pregnant when I did, is because I knew I wasn't ready to run 100 miles and I was ready to like start a family. So I was like, maybe I can just try to get another golden ticket, and then I just have this in my back pocket for whenever I decide that maybe I am ready to run 100 miles. But yeah, it's honestly a very cool policy on the women's side. So
what is the timeline?
Okay.
Go ahead.
What was that?
I think you're ready and you're going to crush it.
Not this year, but maybe next year. Yeah.
Well, with your return to run program currently, I agree. But like, I still think last year you would have crushed it. So just
Thank you.
Real quick, just purely out of curiosity, what does the golden ticket timeline look like? Like, how long do you have to defer your ticket?
So that was like a funky timeline, and I'd actually have to look it up because injury is the same way. Like a ticket can roll down to someone if they get injured up until a certain point, and I can't remember the exact date. It is on the website underneath like the golden ticket information, but I feel like it was like maybe sometime in May, like mid-May, like 6 weeks out or something like that. And so I really obviously wanted to tell states before that time, because I wanted to make sure that somebody was still getting my ticket, because if I had deferred after that point, then the ticket just doesn't go to anybody. It's just dead space. Well, obviously it can go to a waitlist person, but in terms of like the competitive field and like people earning their way into states, I think it's a much cooler story for it to be able to get rolled down to the next person. But yeah, I can't remember the exact date, but I think I told Abby like maybe 2 or 3 weeks before, just because that's how my timeline worked out. Obviously, like if I had gotten pregnant the week before, I still would have deferred and like nobody would have gotten my ticket, and that would have been fine. So
Gotcha. Okay, I want to start to bring this to a close. The last 2 questions I have. The first one is there anybody either in your life or in the world who is an inspiration or an example to you of what it looks like to be a mother runner, mother athlete out in the world? I'll start with Grayson. Why don't I come to you?
Everyone sitting at this figurative table. Yeah, I feel like the professional running world and women that have been pregnant postpartum has been so welcoming and useful, and sharing like products and ideas and training, and it's okay to feel bad. And from the road to the trail, I feel like I'm in several group chats of pro runner moms, and that's just been like so cool to see and have that support and have them be like, we did this and you can do it too, and like it's gonna be okay. So yeah, there's way too many to name, but super grateful for all of them.
Love that. Rachel, why don't I come over to you?
Yeah, I think similarly, everyone here, like, especially for me because I'm the last one on this timeline, the earliest in, and so it's cool to see what is life going to look like in 2 months with Mary, or 3 months with Grayson, or almost a year out with MK. And so I think that's been really cool. I think some of the pro runners that have come before us and kind of helped to start the conversation about pregnancy and running, when we were younger, in high school even, and in college, I think that kind of laid the groundwork for us being able to do what we're doing now. So yeah, and then just the runners recently in the past few years that have been running and have been pregnant and then come back and done amazing things. I think I look up to some of them. And then not a woman, but I am very inspired and thankful for my husband. Drew's just been so supportive. And I feel like there was a time where we were kind of questioning having kids, and I was wondering, could I do this? Could I have kids and then come back and be really strong and running? And could I run after something like that? And do I have time to train and us have kids? And he grew up in a house with he has 5 other siblings, and he's the second oldest, and he grew up one of his youngest brother is a senior in high school this year, so he was raising kids when he was in high school and stuff. And so I think just having his perspective of yeah, we can do this. Having kids it's a sacrifice, but it's not as hard as maybe people paint it to be. And I think that we're able to do this. I think kind of put me at ease and made me excited about starting our family instead of fearful about it. I know there's going to be a lot of challenges, but it doesn't feel like something that we can't handle anymore. So yeah, I'm really thankful for him.
Love that. Mary, what about you?
I agree that there's so many examples of professional women who came before us who shared their journey publicly on Instagram, and we got to see their postpartum comeback that I really don't I think all of us can relax in knowing that our best days are still ahead. I'm very confident in that for everyone here. And we've just seen so many examples of it. And I think the most important thing is just to remember that we just got to respect our own recovery and return to racing timeline. And that can just look different for everyone. But truly, we've had so many examples of women coming back and just continuing to crush it. And, I think it's just a message of don't put your personal life on hold for sport, because it's going to be there for you on the other side. And so I really can't name just one person, but I also did want to just say that a lot of my athletes have been a huge source of inspiration for me, because I've seen it as a coach, the process of going through pregnant running, time off, a gradual rebuild, returning to racing. And so they're a huge source of inspiration for me and an example, and really cute that they were checking on me throughout this entire time. And there'd be times when they're like, oh, I know you're in your second trimester. As a reminder, movement helps. Just try to get out for your run. And I'm like, that's what I was telling you 3 years ago. Thank you. So I don't know. It's wonderful to share this with other women. Both athletes I coach, friends, new friends, Rachel and Grayson. So I just think it's a really special time in our lives, and it comes with its challenges and frustrations, but I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Love it. MK?
I'd say Rachel Drake was probably a big inspiration for me, just because she was somebody that I directly was racing in her postpartum journey. So I got to see wow, this woman is kicking my ass, on the other side of her first baby. And but since then, my community has grown, just with Leah being pregnant at the same time. Claire Gallagher and I have become really close postpartum. And then just being able to kind of be an ear on the other side for these ladies has been it's nice for me to be able to look back and be oh, I can actually maybe help somebody else feel better. And so yeah, just inspired that I get to be a part of this generation where being a pregnant athlete isn't something so crazy that you have to be as stressed about, it feels like. And so, yeah, I just feel like we're in a really good space right now. Obviously, it can always be better with anything involving women's health and like women's place in this sport, especially postpartum and during pregnancy. But like, I feel like we're in a sweet spot where we can all really help each other out in a lot of facets. So,
really agree with both sides of that sentiment. Last question, I'll stay with you, MK. If you could give one piece of advice to anyone listening, professional or unprofessional, who is thinking about starting a family, trying to conceive, pregnant, postpartum, new motherhood, what piece of advice would you give?
Don't try to plan your, conceiving too much around life. Like, I don't know. I feel like so many of us, especially as athletes, are like, oh, I got to do this first and then I'll try to get pregnant. And I feel like it's just so much better for you, for your baby, for your partner, if you just like kind of let that go. And you're like, okay, we're going to try to get pregnant and whatever happens, happens. Because if you try to plan around too many other things, it doesn't always work out the way you want it to. So yeah, just kind of let go and let the process be. And like Mary said, like life will be waiting for you on the other side. It'll be a little bit different. It'll be a little bit more chaotic, but it's so cool. So I don't know. Yeah, it's not worth like waiting around for the right moment.
I love that. Mary, I'm going to go in reverse direction, come right back to you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm truly someone who believes that, things are meant to happen if and when they're meant to happen. I got divorced in 2020 and was decidedly uninterested in dating for most of the 5 years between that and connecting with my now husband. So, I thought that this was a journey that I wouldn't potentially go on because I wasn't going to do it on my own. Like, respect to those who choose that, but I didn't want to do this on my own. So, I think for me, like my whole life journey has just been about like not stressing my way through life and not trying to force timelines and just trusting that if something's meant for me, it's going to happen. If not, it's not. And like, I had actually made peace with the fact that I probably wasn't going to have kids and I was just going to be an aunt to my friends' kids. And I couldn't wait for my sister to decide to do that. She's 6 years younger than me. But I don't know. I very much live by like, it's a Scottish proverb of, what's meant for you won't miss you. So like, I think one of the best things you can do for yourself, like just as a human being, is to like have your stress levels be down, like about everything in your life, whether that's career, running, goals, anything. Like, I try to be as low stress as possible, and just trust that things are supposed to work out. And like, I felt like my getting pregnant journey was a lot about just like, let's take my hand off the wheel, and just like actively try but not like stress over it. And so, and also like with pregnancy, I've also just been very like trying to be as like zen as possible in a time of great uncertainty, right? Because you're like, I don't know if this is developing normally. I don't know, like, you see your child like on the screen so infrequently, and you're like, you go these like long stretches between doctor's appointments, and you're like, especially when you're not feeling anything yet, you're like, I hope you're going through your little process in there. So I just think working on your stress levels in general as a human being is like one of the most important things to having just like a relaxed, happy life.
I love that. Grayson, how about you?
Yeah, this was you sent these ahead of time, so I've been trying to come up with something. Because I think I'm still also like in the process of learning what advice I would give people for that. But I think kind of what I came to was that you can make a decision that feels really hard and you can struggle with it for a long time. That doesn't mean it was the wrong decision. And sometimes these decisions aren't easy decisions to make. And similarly, like pregnancy doesn't have to be this like, oh my God, like super exciting thing right away for people. And it's okay not to feel that way. because I think what we see on social media a lot is like it's only a happy experience and only an easy experience for people, and that there's just so many confounding variables that go into pregnancy and having a kid that I think get left out. And yeah, even if like the beginning is like really difficult, I'm telling myself that doesn't mean I'm going to be a bad mom. It just was like a big shift that I had to make mentally and like be okay with. So give yourself the time to like be okay with it and find a way to be okay with it. I've been going to so much therapy, so that's been helpful for me. But yeah, like just it's okay if you're not okay at the beginning too.
I love that. I think that's important. Rachel, how about you?
Yeah, I think for me, just knowing that you can do it. And I think that kids are something that can enhance your life and make it more beautiful and more colorful and more fun. And yeah, I really think that having a family is going to be just a really, really beautiful part of life. And then in the same breath, while I'm going to love my kids, I do think that you can chase your own dreams and goals and that your kids don't have to get in the way of doing that. You can have kids and also chase after your dreams and goals running wise or whatever else you are wanting to do. And I think that doing that is going to show my kids great morals and values too, and hopefully inspire them to chase after their own dreams and goals and have a really strong work ethic and things like that. Like I think that the way that I live my life is going to affect how my kids lead and live their life. And so I think that that is just a really cool thing being a mom. Like I think that I'm more excited to race next year because I want to be an example for my kids. And so yeah, I guess I don't know if that's advice or more of a pump up speech, but I really do think that you can do it and you can be a mom and that kids can enhance your life and make it more beautiful. And you can be an excellent role model for them, just following and chasing your own dreams and goals.
I love that. And it's completely true. It really is. I think I'll leave with one piece of advice. I am closer to the empty nest than I am to nesting, as you all are. My kids are teenagers and leaving soon. I think the piece of advice I would give is to know that parenthood will change you. I think we know that obviously, but it's also scary. And I think I would just say, even though it's scary, it is also beautiful and it's hard. And just like sport, the hard is where the beauty comes from. And everything that you did before or everything that you're doing after becomes deeper and more meaningful on the other side. And so, no, the hard is worth it. And the hard is where the beauty comes from also. Thank you all so much for taking your time to be here. We talked for a long time, and I really appreciate you sharing your personal experiences and perspectives. And I think this is going to be really valuable for listeners to hear. And I just really appreciate you sharing and taking your time.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Lauren.